class. So I want us to start today with a piece of paper and a pencil. On your piece of paper, I want you to list the 5 healthiest foods you can think of. So take about 20 seconds, list 5 of the healthiest food you can think of. All right, so what are some of the foods that you listed down? I see broccoli, you've got some salad there, you've got chicken. So what I want us to think about today is how many of those healthy foods do you think are actually GMOs? So my research question that I tried to figure out the answer to were, how do GMOs influence our access to healthy food? So first, let's start with a little bit of background. So why are we talking about GMOs? Well, as we read in The Omnivore's Dilemma, genetically modified food is not something new. As you can see on this timeline, it started 10,000 years ago. Humans began crop domestication using selective breeding. So for a long time, farmers have been trying to find ways to get more out of their crops and to make sure their food is producing a lot of yield and that it also has tasty nutrients for people. Now, as we're going through the timeline, you can see that as we went through, now GMOs are created not in a farm, but in a laboratory. And we read about this in Omnivore's Dilemma when the seed companies were modifying those seeds. So this is a topic that we still talk about today because it is kind of something that some people think is good and some people think is not so good. So let's skip to the good part. So what are some of the advantages of GMOs? So first, fewer pesticides. If we're able to use GMOs and genetically modify our food, farmers would be able to use fewer pesticides. And as some other groups may tell you today, there are dangers to pesticides. So with these GMOs, we could have fewer pesticides. Less fats, more nutrients. So again, think of that genetic splicing. So what farmers are able to do and scientists are able to do is to create kind of these super seeds almost. And they can put things in there that are better for us, like vitamin A or other types of nutrients, and they can take things out that are not so good for us. Increased yields. So that word yields means more. So think about the farmer. They get paid by how much crop they can produce, and they want those higher yields. And of course, for us as consumers, that makes sure that when we go to the grocery store, we're going to have what we need. But let's think about this. Are GMOs too good to be true? There's a lot of controversy about GMOs. You know, when you go to the grocery store, you look at products and they may be labeled as non-GMO. And so you think to yourself, well, that sounds good because doesn't have GMOs in it. But then there's a lot of people who say, well, what's wrong with GMOs? I mean, this is just progress. This is science. For example, look at these memes. Being attacked by a bear is 100% natural, so that means it's good for you. So that's kind of attacking people who are like, let's eat natural food. We don't need GMOs. Well, maybe not everything that's natural is the best for us. You know, with progress comes better food and better qualities. And then over here, we have a Santa Claus meme. I saw you share anti-GMO memes. You're getting a science textbook this year. So this kind of making the point that if we look at science and look at research, GMOs are not as bad as they seem. However, there is some concern about the long-term effects of GMOs. GMOs sound great. They sound almost a little too good to be true. So the research is still out there on these long-term effects. So after that 3 minutes of presentation, you will then ask your classmates or your students in this scenario for their questions. Now, hopefully they will have some questions to ask, but if they don't, it's your job as that presenter to keep that presentation going. So on your notes, on your lesson plan, you have Notice Wonder. So this is a place where if your students are not asking you questions, you could have some things to bring up. This is also if the students ask you questions that you don't know the answer to. You don't want to say, I don't know. You are the expert on this topic. So even if you don't know the answer, you want to turn that conversation around. So let's say my student Sally asked me a question that I don't know the answer to. Maybe she says, what year was corn first genetically modified? And I can say, well, Sally, I'm not sure exactly what year corn started being modified, but what I do know is that GMO plants last longer because they're resistant to pests and disease. And so that kind of ties back into the idea of pesticide. And we know corn is a very popular crop. So no matter when they started putting or genetically modifying corn, we do know it's resistant to pests and disease. And that's kind of how you can keep that Q&A going. All right, students, so our last thing today on your handout, your exit ticket for this lesson, should we genetically engineer our food? Why or why not? So think about those advantages that I pointed out today. Think about those disadvantages. Are you more on the pro side of GMOs or are you more on the con side of GMOs? So take a few minutes, write that down on your exit ticket paper, and I appreciate you listening today. I hope that you were able to make some connections between GMOs and your own topic.